Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Saturday, August 17th. Yes, winter's coming, right? So I thought today we would talk because we did a lot of it this week where we didn't get the job done yet, but prepping something for a job, of how sometimes that's more important than the actual job, right? Or not. All right, stay tuned. All right, welcome back. Yes, it is. It is Saturday, August 17th. This is the weekend. Finally, right? So I thought today we talk about prepping. And what do I mean by prepping? I mean, I can give you countless examples of when I was younger over the past 30, 40 years of where I didn't give enough thought to the process. You know, most guys are fixers, right? That's what we do. We try to fix. But if we don't have a process or a roadmap of how we're going to do it, you know, there's so many things that come into play. You have safety is highly important. Having your personal protective gear is very important. Clean work area is important. You know, tripping and falling and this and that. But yeah, over the years, you know, if I had a lawnmower that wasn't running, you know, I just push it in and try to do a quick fix. And I think that's how a lot of people try doing things in life, and that's why they're hitting roadblocks. Is because, to be honest with you, most often the time there is no quick fix. You may be just prolonging an issue with the quick fix, but is it really a fix? And my answer is no. I mean, if you're trying to get your lawnmower to run just one more season and you can hop something together, who am I to say you're wrong? But for us that work on customer machines, it is wrong. And why am I saying it's wrong? Well, because we walk that fine line, all right? And this is even for guys that aren't running shops, just to be aware of. Don't cause it to make you stop working on stuff, but just be aware of it. I mentioned before in other videos liability. Liability is a big important deal to me in my shop. And what is liability? I mean, is it liability that Claude might get hurt? Well, it's possible, but he falls under the employee realm, okay? Under disability, and I pay for his insurance. But it's when Claude or I do something to a machine that leads to an incident happening with a customer. I mean, we didn't sharp or tighten the blade down. We forgot. And the blade come off and cause damage or even death. The owner said, don't bother putting the belt guards back on because they're just in my way. I don't need them. No. You know how many times people have stuck their feet down there and got caught? Just because a customer asks you or a friend asks you to disable something or not put something back into place that the manufacturer put there for a reason, you're liable. I don't care if the customer or the friend told you to do it. You're liable. Now, you can stand there and tell them how to do it, I guess, on their property. But then, aren't you still partially liable because you're telling them how to? Good question. Same thing with a lot of YouTube videos that tell you how to do stuff that are way off the deep end, as far as I'm concerned. And it causes harm. Are they liable because some yo-yo watched a YouTube video on how to jump his motorcycle over 3 cars? It's just something to be aware of, okay? But getting back to prepping, most people, that's the most mundane job and nobody likes to do it. And that means, in my book, that means when you get done with the one job, put your stuff away. Get your area a clean working area. And then look at the next job. Develop a plan of attack of how you're going to take on the project. And we'll use the 401B as a prime example. You may never work on a tractor, but I can give you a prime example of what I'm talking about when it comes to that tractor. All right, so what had we done up to this point, to yesterday's video? We had checked all the possible culprits that were O-rings and then we went to the next stage because the tractor lost all hydraulics. So we went to the next stage and we pulled out his old hydraulic pump, the big one in the front, and replaced it with a spare that I had on the shelf that I knew was good. And in the 401Bs, if you're not, used to working on them, they have actually 2 pumps. They have one that's called the transmission pump. But the transmission pump also feeds oil back through to the primary pump. And if the transmission pump doesn't have, their pickup isn't picking the oil up, the main pump is not going to work either. So that brought us to where we were yesterday in the video, and that was trying to prep it to get it inside to split it. And that was one of the reasons that I put the shop up for sale, was if we could get it sold, I was going to take the money and build a new shop, something that had taller doors where we could have left the romps on it and still split that tractor. So a lot of times if you don't have the right equipment, it's like trying to remove that romps. You have to have something that can lift high enough to remove it. And from time to time I use the Deutz, which is the farm tractor that you saw. That's my big girl that I use for baling and a lot of things throughout the winter feeding cows. And then I also have a Hitachi E60 excavator, and it's a mid-sized, and we've used that as well. Parked it down there where we just lift, move it out of the way, and then when we go to put it back on. If you don't have those kind of tools, it makes it very difficult, right? Because that romps, as they call it, is very heavy. And it takes more than just a couple of guys to handle that beast. And you got to do it in such a way that it's safe, right? And our plan of attack at this point, because it's changed, our plan of attack was probably probably an O-ring flipped or turned, or and it's allowing fluid beside it. Because I've never seen the primary hydraulic pump just go. I've owned a lot of John Deere tractors. At one time, I had 19 of them. And anytime I ever had a hydraulic problem, if it was the pump, it was a gradual, okay? Kept getting worse and worse and worse, and then no more. And I buy the rebuild kits for the primary, the big one. You can get them online for like $80 and rebuild the whole pump so that it's brand new again. But I keep one good one on the shelf in case one of my John Deeres need it. See, my John Deere tractors have only got the one pump, and that is in the front. Whether it's a small style like the 820 that we did a video on, or whether it's the rest of them, they'll all have the big round front mounted PTO shaft pumps. But with these 401Bs, they were kind of made for the state, for working construction sites and doing roadside mowing for the state of New York and stuff. And they came with two pumps. They call it the transmission pump. And that transmission pump was also, a lot of the tractors had what they call reversers in them, okay? And that means you could go forward or backwards with a lever without having to shift. You could put it in first gear, high range, and use your reverser to go first gear, high range forward, or first gear, high range reverse, right? But this tractor didn't have a reverser, but it had that transmission pump on it. So our plan of attack is now take the romp off from it, which we did. We're going to get it inside. We're going to set and hook the back side of the tractor. And we're going to hook the back side of the tractor is going to be held with, we have a winch mounted on a rail. And we'll hold that up and then block it with that so it takes the weight off from it. And then we'll use a engine puller, to pull the front away from the back that will be solid so that we can gain access. And we're also going to pull what they call the rock cover, and that's below the seat so that we can see anything that's in there as we're taking it apart to make sure that there isn't something, obstructing something or what have you. It gives you better line of sight. But it doesn't matter what you're working on. You need to have a plan of attack. You need to be flexible. You need a clean working area. And if you have your tools all right there, it just makes it so much easier than spending a lot of time walking back and forth to a toolbox. See, now, where you see me doing most of my work is in the front, and that was the toolbox challenge that we all had fun with, of taking the front, which was a retail space, and turning it into another bay, basically. But that handled the snow blowers, tillers, chainsaws, weed eaters, all the smaller stuff that we could work on in there. But my tools are right there. And if you ever notice that in between every job, I clean my tools, put them back where they belong, and made sure everything was picked up before I started the next job. That way I know where everything is. I don't throw all my sockets into one drop because I'd never be able to figure out, but I have my sockets all laid out. It says what they are. By taking the time, you're saving yourself time. And that's anything in life. If you just go ahead strong into it, it's going to take you longer most often than the guy that thought about it, prepped it, and then did the job. Just something to give thought to. So I thought I'd round it out. It's not going to be a long video today. But I was hoping for a quiet weekend or a quiet Friday because we're doing quite a bit of stuff this week. And I knew Claude wanted to get out early, so I'd go to the bank, and his granddaughter called and she wanted to know if Papa could help her get her new riding lawnmower home. So I'm sitting there and I'm working on videos. I got 2 of them up yesterday. As you guys see, I was editing. That's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to edit. And the phone rang. One of our really good customers. She called us and said, are you really busy? And I said, well, depends. I always say that, depends. She said, well, Paul's out there trying to mow the yard and he can't keep the lawnmower going. I said, okay. She said, I don't know if you were affected by that flood, but the lawnmower sat underwater for 2 days. And I told her, I said, don't worry about it. Why don't we just plan on picking it up Monday morning? She said, sounds like a plan, Eric. So I just get hung up with her, and another customer calls and says her lawnmower won't start. And this is the love of it. She is like 82 or 83, lives alone. She has 2 full-size pickup crew cabs, and still going strong. Mows her own yard. But she calls me and tells me that her and her son had diagnosed the lawnmower and decided it was the fuse. But they couldn't figure out where the fuse was. So I asked her, I said, does it turn over? She said, yeah, it just won't start. I said, well, forget the fuse, because the fuse is going to control everything. Either it's going to turn over or it's not. If it doesn't turn over, then possibly the fuse could be the issue, right? She said, can you come over right now? I said, well, hang tight. Let me see what I can do. And I'm thinking it's either the electric fuel pump or something else. She's always taken pretty decent care of her stuff. So I figure, well, I got the trailer on. Let me swing over to Paul's because he's closest. I get over there. I get the lawnmower started, get it on the trailer. And they're thrilled that I come within half an hour just to get it out of there. I said, look, I work half days on Saturdays. We can just bring it in and I'll start draining the fluids. But she was telling me about every bit of their property was underwater at one point. The cellar was flooded halfway up. And the nice thing is hopefully they've got these $50,000 grants through FEMA for affected homeowners to help them out. I mean, it took their hot water heater out. There was still water in the basement. I don't have a pump system that I could let them use. I guess they went and bought a sump pump or something, trying to get the water out. And they do have insurance, but for that couple, they're going to get a break because they've had a lot of hardship this last week and a half. I know what it's like to be affected by things out of your control, and you lose a lot of stuff that's very important to you with water damage. You know, I look at it as no different than having a fire. You know, you've lost all your stuff. And a lot of times with water damage, it gets all moldy and there's no way to get the black mold off. And if you're up in years, usually you're breathing and stuff, it can kill you. And that's what I explained to them. You need to get somebody in there that does professionally and let your insurance company and then be reimbursed by FEMA. So I got their mower back to the shop, dropped that off, went all the way out to the older gal. Sure enough, she had the spark plug out, and she says, I don't know why it's not working. She says, not that old. I said, well, it's just... And I brought the trailer because I figured, well, I'm by myself, but if it's just short push, I can at least push it on. Way the heck out in the backyard. This puppy ain't pushing it that far. So I took and unplugged the fuel shut off a couple times to see if I could hear it. I couldn't hear it clicking. So I went, I got a 1/2-inch wrench and I popped it off, held my thumb over the bowl where that goes, and I said, give it a shot, just try it. Fired right up. I said, I know exactly what the problem is. I don't have one with me, and I'm not pushing this puppy, and I'm not going to ask you to push this puppy all the way out to the road where the trailer is. I said, so that means I got to come back, and I won't be back till Monday because tomorrow's supposed to start raining again. So unless you got Noah's Ark, you're not going to get your yard mowed till Monday of next week. She said, well, let me give you some gas money. She wanted to give me $20 for my troubles of driving 20-some miles. I just told her, look, you might better hold on to it. You may need it for beer money to, you know, all your frustrations of why your lawnmower isn't working. But that's what I mean. You know, a lot of this is spontaneous. A lot of it, you know, you'd like to prep. Now, if I had time to prep before I went all the way out there, I would have taken with me a fuel solenoid. It was moving up and down, but it just, with the key, it wasn't clicking up and down. It was staying in the off position. You know, I probably should carry an extra fuel solenoid in the truck, but Kohler runs one different than, you know, Sears AYP. But they're all basically the same. They're all just a magnet, and it just pulls it down when the key is on, so it allows fuel to go through. And when you turn the key off, it goes up and it shuts the fuel off. That's what its job is. But just give that some thought. You know, if you sit down and you prepare, you prep, 9 times out of 10 that job will go a lot easier. Is prepping and doing what needs to be done before doing the actual work kind of mundane? It is. But it's going to make your life so much simpler. It's going to make that job so much easier. And just simply throwing a hydraulic pump in, it's not that easy. This tractor has to be split now because we know it's not the primary, it's the secondary. So on that note, you guys have a great Saturday. And thanks again so much for watching the videos.